Next we have a skill very near and dear to my heart, and one with some interesting changes, marksmanship. This perk tree is now essentially 3 different perk trees all in one. So as per usual, we have focus to begin with. They did change the effect a little. You draw bows 10% faster and deal 10% more damage with any bow. Crossbows ignore 60% of armor, so you can already guess some of what the dividers are going to be in this tree. There are 2 different types of bows, and then there are crossbows. So the 3 different parts of this tree affect long bows, crossbows, and then short bows. And it looks like your bow draw speed has been rolled into this perk instead of being a separate perk. Let's go ahead and go through these 2 general perks. These affect any of the bows and crossbows. Pressing block while aiming will zoom in your view, and zooming in with any ranged weapon slows time. Those were there before. They remain mostly unchanged. So let's go up the longbow side first. Power draw. You can draw a longbow for 3 seconds in total for a damage boost of 15%. If this percentage goes up with each of these ranks, what does that get up to? Is that 85? No, is that... I think that's... Oh, I think it's 75, isn't it? That sounds right. No? Yeah, it's 75. That gets up to a 75% damage boost. That could be huge for getting a sneak attack off on a dragon. Keen's Lance. While wielding a longbow, you gain a damage bonus against faraway targets. 10% for 40 feet, 20% for 70 feet, and 30% for 100 feet. So if they're way out, again, these two things synergize huge with faraway first shots. Can I please go down? God, I hate moving around on this friggin' perk tree. These two synergize with getting that first shot off, you know, and maybe even having it be a sneak shot. That could get the damage multipliers just through the roof. Baneful Elan. With longbow attacks, you have an additional 30% chance to stagger a moving target, and a 15% chance to strike a sprinting target to the ground. Kinda cool. Longbow attacks that hit an enemy's back deal 50% more damage. Again, one of those things, I think it gets up to 150% too, that synergizes with that first shot, because after the first shot they'll be facing you. Takedown. Against staggered enemies, you deal 200% critical damage with longbows. A little way to, even after you've engaged them in combat, still be effective against them. Before we read the very top perk, let's move over to the crossbow perks. Ballistics! You can craft steel and dwarven crossbows and bolts at forges if you have the respective smithing perks. So you need dwarven and steel smithing, or whatever those are called now with the new smithing. I do not recall. Recurve. You can create recurve crossbows with strong bridles that deal additional damage. Only 1 enchantment can be put on any crossbow. The next 2 perks right above this are also crafting perks. Arbalist, actually the next one. I'm not sure this next one is. You can create advanced crossbows with a heavy prod that deals damage against blocking targets, but fires slower. That seems kind of weird and really super situational. Engineer. You can put 2 enchantments of choice on any crossbow. So I think you have to have this perk in addition to the respective enchantment perk, or enchanting perk, to actually allow that to happen. I think if you just have the enchanting perk, you can't actually put 2 enchantments on any given crossbow. Let's go up these couple middle perks right here. You can upgrade bolts at forges once, creating a stronger version. Only works if you have the respective smithing and material perk. Barbed Quarrel. I guess I didn't read the name of that one, did I? That was Advanced Misslecraft. Misslecraft sounds like a fun game. Barbed Quarrel. You can enhance bolts with barbs that result in bleeding damage and a slowdown on the target. Does not work on bolts that are already enhanced. That's pretty sweet. I think the Wayfarer tree has ways to enhance bolts in other ways. I think you can enhance them with elemental effects. Lightweight construction. You can optimize existing parts on a crossbow, reducing weight and increasing firing rate. Only 1 enhancement can be put on any crossbow. Did that say enhancement? Was I reading enchantment? Hold on. Whoa, wrong tree. This right here. Enhancement. I was saying enchantment. God, I'm a fool. You know, I was probably totally wrong what I was saying about this perk up here. Probably has nothing to do with enchantment. Enhancements. Crossbow enhancements. You can enhance crossbows with silencers, resulting in improved sneak attack damage. Again, only 1 enhancement. That lets you put the 2 enhancements on. So this little crossbow tree is all about modifying the crossbow itself, not really about your skill with it, which is kind of cool because that makes sense. You don't really get skill with the crossbow. You just If it fires well, it fires well. You know, you just shoot people with it. And last but not least, short bows. Point blank. With short bows, you deal 5% more damage against enemies within 30 feet range, 10% against enemies within 20 feet, 15% against enemies within a 10-foot range. Ranger's trick. Bash attacks with short bows have a 25% chance to disarm the opponent. Mobility. You are able to move faster with a drawn short bow. When sheathing the bow after an attack, you might get a short speed boost. So if you want, you could sheath the bow after throwing off some attacks before you kill an enemy, just to turn and make some space between you and the enemy, then turn back around and unsheath your bow. It says you might, so I guess it's not reliable. Maybe that wouldn't be a valid tactic. Flanking. Short bow attacks directed at an enemy's side or back deal 25% more damage. 3 ranks up to 75%. Prominent flanker. Short bow attacks that hit an enemy's side or back have a slightly increased chance to stagger, hitting them nasty critical spots. Arrow hail. When landing short bow hits on a single target in quick succession, you deal a growing amount of bonus damage. 10 points of additional damage per hit. So that gets hugely stacky friendly with this point blank perk. The closer they get, you do more damage. The more times you hit them as they close on you, you do more damage. And finally, in the very top of the tree, we have the coup de grace. While wielding any bow, you deal double damage against enemies below 15% health. I imagine that would get up to 45% health, which means about half health. You deal double damage to them. So to speak in a general sense, I think, I don't know if crossbows would just be innately more powerful. I kind of feel like they still would be. They were as of Dawnguard with vanilla Skyrim. The crossbow was just straight up better. It's just better than any of the bows out there. It's better than the highest quality bows. It doesn't shoot that much slower, and it does a lot more damage. But other than the crossbows likely still being your choice for overall power, it seems like longbows really have synergy with a fire first and then pull out your swords kind of style, you know? Get that first shot off, do huge damage with it, maybe kill somebody, maybe get a first shot off on somebody else and kill them too, and then pull your swords out and do battle some other way. Whereas the short bow, I think, is meant for the pure archer style. So the kind of archer that I played with Velas and with Dharma, I think you should probably use short bows if you're planning on using the bow for all of your damage in combat in any situation. Next, light armor. This is a really cool tree now. They've made a lot of really cool updates. Agile Defender. Increased base armor rating for light armor by 10%. Gets up to 50%. Not a lot of extra armor rating, but the way light armor works in SkyRe, it's not made to be the ultimate semblance of defense. It's made to be a utility. Weak spot. You deal 10% more damage with all weapons against any enemy that only wears light armor. So you do better damage when you understand the light armor. Custom fit. 15% armor bonus if wearing all light armor. Flexibility. Your armor value cannot be ignored by melee weapon perks while wearing all light armor. Seems kind of interesting. I know that enemies do technically have perks, but I feel like you wouldn't know when this is helping you. I feel like you wouldn't really notice not having that perk, and if you got it, you wouldn't really notice having it. Unhindered. Light armor weight is reduced by 50%. Cool. Less weight. Balance. While wearing full light armor, power attacks consume less stamina. Ooh, a little bit of extra synergy with, say, a dual wield style. Maybe even with a two-handed style. Both those styles are very heavy on power attacking. Windwalker. Stamina regenerates 50% faster in all light armor. That would be cool for an archer or for, I don't know, a couple different styles. Adrenaline Rush. On an incoming power attack, you gain a sudden speed and stamina boost if you're not blocking and wearing only light armor. So the power attack hits you and it hurts like a mother. But at least you can run away from him pretty easily afterwards. Swift Counter. Well-timed blocks with shields made of light materials reduce incoming damage to 0 as long as you're fully clad in light armor. So this is a light armor sword and board kind of perk, which is interesting. Deft Movement. 10% chance of avoiding all damage from a melee attack while wearing all light armor. With 2 ranks, that gets up to a 25% or to a 20% chance, meaning that you have a 1 in 5 chance of not taking any damage. Adrenaline Overload. Just after an adrenaline rush ends, you deal double damage for 2 seconds. So for like, I don't know, maybe a couple attacks if you were dual wielding, but really just one attack for just about any other style. Adrenaline Rush again is whenever you get power attacked, so that triggers shortly thereafter. And then finally, Potential. Material-based effects on light armor are twice as strong. Material-based effects. So, I think that means like smithing improvements? I don't know. I'm a little bit mystified by that. Material-based effects on light armor are twice as strong. I'm not sure. I don't know exactly what that means. I don't know what material-based. I have to assume they're talking about improving light armors of different types of materials. Oh, no, I know what they're talking about. Hold on. So check it out. So if you go over to the smithing tree, you can see that each different type of light armor has a specific effect. And all the light armors don't really have great armor rating. Like the top light armor doesn't have that much of a better armor rating than the bottom light armors. Especially if you have the smithing perks for it and you can improve it. Most of your armor rating is going to come from that improvement. Each one of these has an effect though, and that perk doubles it? Wow, that is really neat. Some of these like absorb incoming spells, increases movement speed and reduces elemental damage. That would double your movement speed increase and your elemental damage resistance. That's awesome. That really makes me want to go up the smithing tree and make a light armored, unarmed character. Sneak. For any of you who've been watching my SkyRe playthrough that I started recently, you're probably already familiar with most of this tree. Stealth. You're 10% harder to detect when sneaking. 5 ranks. Let me note, too, I should have said it before that even, they at least state that they've made sneaking much more difficult in SkyRe. It's a little bit more based on light, and I think enemies will search for you longer. Blindside. Unarmed sneak attacks and sneak attacks with one-handed weapons have their damage multiplier increased by 1. Sneak attacks with two-handed weapons have their damage multiplier increased by 0.5. Knockout. While having a mace equipped or unarmed and undetected, you can beat an enemy unconscious by activating him. Beat an enemy. That makes me think there's like a special animation for it. That'd be really sweet. Last Breath. You are able to kill sleeping and unconscious targets instantly with any weapon by activating them. Now, the thing that's cool about these couple perks over here is that they all require really low skill, and they make your one-handed weapons pretty damn good. At least, pretty synergistic with sneaking. Pretty good on that initial hit. So we have Lightfoot. You won't trigger pressure plates. Intruder. While trespassing, you are even harder to detect. Muffled movement. Noise from armor is reduced. Sharpshooter. Sneak attacks with bows have a 20% chance to completely ignore the target's armor. Sneak attacks with ranged weapons get a random boost of 20 to 40% in strength. Random boost. That sounds kind of weird. I assume that by ranged weapons they're talking primarily about crossbows, and I would think that the boost would be based on what type of crossbow it is. I'm not sure. Sounds kind of odd. Thief's Toolbox. You are able to enhance low-ranked bolts and arrows with ropes, light, and sound sources at any forge. So you could throw a sound source. You could throw a light. I don't know what you could do with a rope. What could you do with a rope? Could you, like, tie somebody up? That sounds crazy. There's some stuff going on there that I don't quite understand. Sounds pretty cool, though. Silent Roll. While sneaking, you can run, basically. You gotta spam shift to do it, but yeah, whatever. Silent Warmonger. Sneak attacks with weapons are stronger if the target is engaged in combat. So if you can get up behind them, maybe you have your follower go occupy their attention. Ambush. After a successful sneak attack with a dagger, time is slowed down by 25% for 2 seconds, which is kind of cool. You might be able to pull something off like sneak attack with a dagger on one enemy, switch to a short bow, and stick an arrow in another one within that little time, so that'd be kind of cool. Assassinate. When behind a humanoid target, you can choose to kill it instantly with a dagger. So I wonder what they mean by choose. I wonder if that's using the E key on them, activating them like the other perk suggested, or if you would just attack with the dagger. Because I've tried to attack with a dagger before, quite a bit from behind, and I've very rarely gotten the assassinate, the little special animation and whatnot. So I don't know. I think it used to be based on just a percentage chance whenever you're, you know, attacking them from behind, but that makes it seem like it's not, that it can't happen until you get that perk. A totally new tree comes up next, the Wayfarer tree. This tree was put in to grant a number of bonuses related to wildlife and nature. So in a broad sense, this tree has a few perks that grant you a bonus to all creatures whose lore you know. And then there are a bunch of different perks, the majority of this tree, that grant you lore for different groups of creatures. I don't think I'm going to go through every creature bit of lore, but let's take a look at least all the bonus perks first. So you have Traveler. This one does not relate specifically to lore perks, but it says that campfires burn 20% longer with 5 ranks, so double time at top rank. And then while in the wilds, you move 5% faster, so that'll get up to 25%. Nice little bonus. Immunization. You are 25% more resistant against poisons and diseases, and 25% for 4 different ranks does allow you to get to 100%, which means you are immune to poisons and diseases. Forestry. Gather 1 additional piece of firewood or 1 to 2 additional pieces of dead wood when harvesting wood. Windbreaker. All cloaks keep you dry 25% longer. Glacial Swimmer. Cold water no longer saps your stamina. Swim in frigid water twice as long. And Well Insulated. 25% exposure protection bonus if wearing a matching set of armor. So if you're wearing all Daedric or all Ebony or etc., etc. So these perks over here on this right side are specific to the Frostfall mod. And if you just have SkyRe installed, this, I think, immunization is there, but none of these perks straight up this side are there. And over on the other side, we have Awareness. You can collect and place bear traps. Place bear traps have a 30% chance of breaking when triggered. Gatherer. You can gather additional pelts from some animals and have a small chance of gathering a valuable quality pelt. I'm not sure what you can do with the quality pelt. Green Thumb. 2 ingredients are gathered from harvestable ingredient sources. Hunting Grounds. You can craft bear traps at forges. Silent Hunt. Physical damage from bear traps is increased to 75. Spike traps deal half as much damage per hit. So I have to assume that, given that there are 2 ranks here, the first one is bear traps, the second one is spike traps. Spike traps deal half as much damage per hit. I'm not sure, actually. That spike traps might be... traps that you take, traps that hit you. Leg Cutter. Physical damage from traps ignores armor. Alright, so those are all the, not lore-oriented perks. That's how we'll say it. From here we have lore perks, so this one's like deer, elks, foxes, rabbits, wolves. This allows these other bonus perks to apply to those types of animals. Here we have Tracker. You can use the tracking ability to detect all creatures around you within a 100-foot radius. Only works on living creatures whose lore you know. So after you get this lore perk, all of these creatures, or I should say after you get this lore perk and after you get this Tracker perk, then all of those creatures are going to appear. They're going to, I believe it's just like detect life. You see like their essence through walls and whatnot. Chosen Fiend. You deal 10% more damage and take 5% less damage from any creature whose lore you know. Then there's lore for the Predators. You acquire better knowledge about Spriggans, Sabercats, and Ice Wraiths. We have Harmony. All creatures you have knowledge about are no longer hostile towards you. Does not include humanoids and dragons, and yes, there are lore bits that include humanoids and dragons. So you can get a lot of these other bonuses on humanoids and dragons. There's another lore for cave dwellers. There's another lore for great land striders. Another lore for the forces of nature, bears and trolls. The strong wardens of plains and mountains, it calls bears and trolls. Lore for dragons. And then lore for humanoids. And Falmer. Includes Falmer. So you can get these few. Let's see. I guess it's really just Harmony. Chosen Fiend and Tracker. You can get these 3 bonus perks, and then they apply to any creatures that you have the lore for. So kind of an interesting skill tree. Has the potential to give you a damage increase, but also gives you all kinds of other nice utility, especially with these Frostfall perks up the one side. Carrying right along, Fingersmith. This is, I believe, a combination of the lockpicking and pickpocketing perk trees. So, light fingers is where we start. You start training your fingers, resulting in a 20% bonus to picking pockets and a 40% bonus to opening locks. The journey of thievery has just begun. Now, I believe one side of this is for pickpocketing and one side is predominantly for lockpicking. I think it's right and left, respectively. Nose for coin. Find more golden chests. Treasure Hunter. you are starting to be able to distinguish trash from more valuable pieces, doubling your chances of finding special treasure. And given that it says doubling on the first rank, I only imagine that gets up to like 150% bonus. Or I guess 300% bonus. Doubling would be 100%. The next rank being 2. The final rank being 300%. Extra pockets. Being a clever thief, you've learned to cram your pockets to the fullest, allowing you to carry an extra 100 weight. 100 weight's nothing to scoff at. That with a couple of the other weight carrying bonuses could really stack up to allow you to carry a lot of stuff. Night Thief, plus 25% chance to pickpocket if the target is asleep. And it looks like I was wrong. It looks like their perks are mixed for lockpicking and pickpocketing basically throughout this tree. Poisoned. Silently harm enemies by placing poisons in their pockets. Interesting. Like grenades in Fallout. Cut Purse. Pickpocketing gold is 50% easier. Keymaster. As a professional thief, opening things has become your forte. You can create replicas of locks you pick, and you can almost always steal keys. Locksmith. You have an intuition of how to start the pick closer to a lock sweet spot and keep from being noticed picking locks. Both kind of interesting. Snatch. Oh, I'm so juvenile. Precise reflexes developed from lock and pocket picking practice. You have granted you the ability to steal an enemy's equipped weapon. Ace's Mark. With your art perfected, you can now steal a target's equipped items, a skill that other thieves envy you for. So, in general, they've reduced the number of perks that you can put in this tree. So there are fewer perks, which I like, because this is kind of a strange tree. It'll give you gold, it'll give you, better income in a couple of different easy ways, but it basically has no implications on combat, other than the ability to sneak poisons into a person's inventory. So I like that they kind of reduced it overall, so you don't end up putting as many perks as this as you would in one of your primary trees. It really makes it feel like a secondary tree. Speechcraft, another tree with some really interesting changes. We start with haggling just like it was before. Selling prices improve. Then we have a choice of either intimidation or persuasion to make those attempts respectively better. And you don't necessarily have to get both of those. Either one, you can go up to merchant, sell any kind of item to any kind of merchant. Trades of war. Blacksmiths sell additional high-quality ores and ingots. Buying and selling prices from blacksmiths are 25% better. So this stacks with haggling, and it makes it to where if you're going to be a smith, you should probably come in here and get this Trades of War, because it would be just hugely beneficial to be able to deal with blacksmiths really well. Investor can invest 500 gold, just like before. Fence can barter stolen goods with any merchant you've invested in. Master Trader, every merchant gains an extra 1,000 gold. Masquerade, now this is cool. When wearing a faction's full gear, you'll be recognized as a member of that faction. This, I believe, even works with the Savages, the Forsworn. That's the word I was looking for. And finally, Grand Facade. You are able to craft cowls at the tanning rack. Cowls, a head item, hide your identity while worn, keeping bounty away from you, and work with all forms of these work with all forms of masquerade. So you can put a cowl on while you're wearing a full degree of faction, excluding the headpiece, of course, if that faction has a headpiece in their gear, because the cowl will suffice. Loyalty. Let's see. I did not see that one. Let's back up here. Okay, so off of Persuasion, you can also get some perks that affect your followers. Strength in numbers. As long as you have a follower, all skills level 10% faster, and you deal 5% additional damage with weapons and spells. I like how that stacks with basically everything, so long as you have a follower. Loyalty. The damage bonus from Strength in numbers applies to your followers. I'd imagine the second rank of that doubles the benefit, but I'm not certain, as I do not have it. Alright, and then the final side of the tree, arguably the most interesting part of the tree, the part that affects your shouts. Fluent Speaker. Shouts recover faster. 3 ranks. Heroic Voice. Non-harmful shouts are 25% more effective and or last 25% longer. Let's see if we can go lateral here. Violent Voice. Harmful shouts are 25% more powerful. So this one is more effective or longer. This one is this one is more effective or longer for, oh my god, perk tree. Really? Like, that perk is the one that you thought I wanted to go to? How is it even an option that I jump all the way over to that perk? This one affects beneficial shouts, is what I'm trying to say. This one affects harmful shouts. Echoing Rage. The strength of harmful shouts grows with your Speechcraft skill level. The duration and or magnitude of non-harmful shouts grows with your Speechcraft level. Last but not least, Leader's Voice. Shouts that summon companions last 50% longer. I don't think that changes anything about Dragon Shouts. Dragon Shouts last until the end of the fight, no matter. So this would only work on your, like, the Summon Hero from Sovngarde. And honestly, that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. I know there's another... there's some nature shout, isn't there, that brings a bunch of animals to your side? I don't know. It probably works with that. And that shout I'm talking about is actually awesome, but for some reason it's just utterly unattractive to me. I've never really played around with it. Alchemy. Potions and poisons you make are 10% stronger, and we have an interesting split here. I don't know why. Let's start on the right side. Physician. Potions you mix that restore health, magicka, or stamina are 25% more powerful. Benefactor. Potions you mix with beneficial effects have an additional 20% greater magnitude. Fast metabolism. Potions with positive effects deliver their full effect twice as fast. That has special synergy with the changes they've made to potions in SkyRe. Potions in SkyRe all work over time. Like, I guess I should say health potions and magicka and stamina potions. None of them are instant. Up at the top of the tree we have Purity. All negative effects are removed from potions. All positive effects are removed from poisons. Just as before. Let's go all the way back down to the bottom over here. Experimenter. Eating an ingredient reveals its first 2 effects. I really wish they would have changed this perk around. Having 3 perks invested in just being able to see the effects of everything. I don't know. That's expensive perk-wise. Field Alchemy. You can craft alembics at forges, and use of alembics to brew potions wherever you are. Snuck an extra word in there. A little of that didn't need to be. Poisoner. Poisons you mix are more effective. Adhesives explosives. You can create adhesive explosives at the cooking pot that can be applied to your weapon or reverse pickpocketed to the target, and that detonate after a short time. Applied to your weapon. That'd be crazy. Could you put an adhesive explosive on your sword? Have it go off and do damage to them and not you? I believe so. Concentrated poison. Poisons applied to weapons last for 2 more hits. Does not work in unarmed combat. I love how this has a bunch of perk levels. It's got 3 ranks. The first level says 2 more hits. It doesn't say 2. Before, when you got this perk, it was poisons last 1 hit. Then you got the perk, poisons last 2 hits. Now it says 2 more, meaning with the first perk investment, poisons last 3 hits. And with 2 additional ranks, it would be awesome if it raised it by 2 hits every time. It would be amazing if that got up to 7 hits from any given poison. That would be awesome. I don't know, though. I'm not certain about the last 2 ranks in that. Fuse. You can enhance all bolts and arrows with explosives at forges. These missiles detonate for high damage on impact. Does not work on already enhanced bolts. So by already enhanced bolts, they mean bolts with elemental effects, which you can perform, I believe, up the archery tree, up the center for crossbows. Poison Burst. You can mix poison flasks at the cooking pot. These can be used to turn bear traps into exploding traps that poison or paralyze everyone nearby, or to coat spike traps with poison. I like how this seems to have an increased degree of synergy with Nightblade. It gives Nightblade characters and builds even more of a reason to come up the alchemy tree, which I think is just awesome. Advanced explosives. You can enhance all arrows and bolts with time bombs at forges. You can enhance bear traps with non-elemental explosives at forges. All about them explosives in the alchemy.